How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the 17th episode of Critically Incorrect. I am joined again once by Charlie and Justin, if you both wanted to say hi.
Hello.
And yeah, pretty slow news week. We do have our own topic, as I'm sure you've already seen in the title. We're going to talk about factions and kind of like our hopes for that near the end of the episode. But yeah, that being said, it was a pretty low news story this week. So we're going to get in that a little bit here in a bit. But of course, as a tradition, we're going to talk about what we've been playing for the last week or so. So, Justin, you can start off. What have you been playing?
All right. Yeah. So I've been playing a bit of the Call of Duty Outbreak mode, which is pretty fun. So, yeah, I haven't like before. I was mainly playing the multiplayer, so I didn't really touch the zombies too much. This week I finally got to do so. I was playing the Outbreak mode, and yeah, it was pretty fun. Just like just teleporting to all these different maps and then completing all these objectives. It's pretty fun. And then after that, me and my friends were looking for like more co-op games to play for now. So I suggested we play Uncharted 4 co-op, which is it's obviously something that came out quite a long time ago. It's like 5 years now, but nonetheless, we're just doing the co-op. It was like really hard considering like you need to actually level up to, I think, like increase your damage and your health and all that. So we were doing crushing difficulty, and they were like the lowest level, so I basically had to carry a bit. But yeah, nonetheless, it was super fun. Still trying to get that 100%. We'll see if I get to that eventually, but yeah. What else other than that? Just I've been playing a bit more on my Switch, just a bit more Mortal Kombat here and there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Right on. Charlie?
So this week I've mainly been playing a lot of multiplayer stuff. Like Justin, I've been playing some COD. I've been playing a lot of the Outbreak mode. I got to round 20 on Outbreak with my mate last night, because we've been trying to do a high round for a while. So we got that done. It was really, really tough, but it's really fun. You get some really good rewards from doing the high rounds as well. And then also playing a bit of Apex here and there, which, funnily enough, my EA account got hacked, so free skin. But it's all working now, so that's pretty good. And then I recently got back into Doom Eternal as well, streaming a bit of the first DLC, because the second DLC is meant to be coming out pretty soon. It's meant to come out before the end of the month sometime, because it's meant to be within a year of the original game's release. So I thought I'd finally get around to playing that. Having a lot of fun with it, although I am currently stuck on like the final like challenge outside of the main objective. It's just insanely, like, they're difficult enough in the main game, but the DLC is just on another level. So I had to drop the difficulty back down to normal, and even then it's like insanely difficult. So I'll eventually get around to beating that, but it's pretty tough. And then also some Fortnite, just because the season ends this week, so I've just been going through doing challenges and stuff because I've hardly played the game at all this season. So, but yeah, that's about it. Mainly that. Oh, and Population 1 on VR. I've played a bit of that with Brandon since he got the game. And that's just a fun battle royale to play here and there. But yeah, that's about it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, this week, like, if last week was my, like, Switch week, this week was my VR week. I've essentially been mainly playing VR. Yeah, like Charlie, I've been playing Population 1. I picked it up, I want to say, like, towards the end of last week or so. Definitely really enjoying that. It's very intuitive and really easy to play, and definitely, like, one of the best games in VR for at least multiplayer-wise for me. So I've really been enjoying that. I also started that Vertigo Remastered and actually beat that this week as well, because it's only like 4 hours long. That's probably been like my main game I've been playing this week. Yeah, it's been very fun. It's like essentially Half-Life meets Rick and Morty. I guess that's how it's kind of described as by a lot of people, and it is very much true to that. Really good game, made by mainly one person, like an ex-Valve employee. It's a very impressive game. Definitely go check it out if you have PC VR. Definitely recommend that. Besides that, like, yeah, it's just been the usual, like, maybe a few multiplayer matches with some friends, or I want to say I played, like, a bit, like, 5 minutes or so of, like, horseshoes, hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades in VR. Just some other VR games as well. But yeah, that's been about it. been pretty fun. Definitely gonna probably play more VR in the next week or so because I've been kind of getting back into it, and yeah, it's been great. That being said, let's get into the releases this week. Pretty low, release week. It's like essentially more updates than anything. Crash 4 is getting its next gen patch actually tomorrow. The day we're recording this, it's going to be coming out on Friday. That's for, of course, PS5 and Xbox Series X. I want to say the Switch as well is also getting its version released for Crash 4 as well. So, big week for Crash 4. Apex Legends, I believe this came out on, I want to say what, like it was 2 days ago on the 9th. Apex Legends
Yeah,
now
so.
out on Switch. That was also shown off at like the Direct a few weeks ago. It's officially out now. So definitely, if you have a Switch and you want to play Apex, don't think that's the best platform to play Apex, but at least it's there. So hey, Watch Dogs Legion. This one makes me laugh because yeah, finally the multiplayer update came out. I haven't played it. I don't feel like I will play it just because I never really got into Legion. But finally the multiplayer update came out. I want to say it's only on consoles, right? Like they're still waiting for PC. Yeah, PC currently is just up in the air. So hopefully that one will come out soon. But yeah, it's out on consoles currently, and it's also worth noting there is no crossplay, so you got to be playing with your friends on that certain platform. But yeah, that's been about it for this week's releases. Nothing else pretty much this week. It's kind of like a dead month until like 2 weeks from now when A Way Out comes, or It Takes Two comes out. A Way Out 2, yeah. It Takes Two. But yeah, actually the biggest news story we have this week actually kind of just came out a few hours ago. It's essentially kind of clarifying the big question mark we had on the Bethesda and Microsoft, obviously, deal that they struck. Well, a deal, I say, it's an acquisition, right? So finally we got some clarification as they had like a roundtable essentially earlier this Thursday morning, and they answered up quite a bit of questions. I mean, the big one that everyone has is what's going to be happening to these, games going forward. As we already knew that, Phil Spencer's already hit on in the past, they're going to be keeping the deals that Bethesda's already made. So that's like Ghostwire Tokyo as well as with Deathloop. He also said they're going to be keeping future deals that they might have. So it's kind of like people are kind of guessing that, Starfield might be a game that Sony also has some kind of exclusivity deal as well. But that's currently not confirmed yet, only speculation. Besides that, he said that going forward, Xbox owners essentially have to look forward to this acquisition, mainly just giving all the Bethesda games, essentially on Game Pass day and date. So all the platforms that Game Pass is on, those games are going to be coming day and date on Game Pass, which we kind of already knew before. But essentially, yeah, that's what it's going to be mainly going on about. In terms of what's going to be happening in terms of like the future series on PlayStation regarding Elder Scrolls 6 and possibly Starfield, he said that they're not going to be looking to split off current fan bases that have already been established on those platforms, but going forward, like new IPs and new experiences will most likely be exclusive to Xbox and PC on those Game Pass platforms. So nice to kind of have I feel like this is a lot more of a concrete wording on what's going to be going forward. I kind of know what to expect now. I feel like Starfield will most likely be exclusive to Xbox and PC unless Sony's already made a deal. And Elder Scrolls 6 will probably stay on, be a multiplayer platform game. So, yeah, I guess Charlie and Justin, do you have any thoughts on this in terms of what was announced today? We'll get into the 20 Game Pass games soon. But yeah.
I think it just kind of solidified a lot of the questions people had, which makes sense. Like, they couldn't talk about it before because obviously the deal only went through like yesterday, day before, so they can actually talk about stuff now because they are now working together. Obviously it is still a little bit like it's not entirely clear, and that's just because I'm sure they haven't fully decided what they want to do yet, and that'll be a conversation that I'll have later when releases, I'm sure, are closer to release. An announcement and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's really good to see. Watching the roundtable as well, it's very clear that everyone at Bethesda and the Softworks studios like id and things are super excited about it. Because if anything, it just means their games are just going to be better because they have better funding and more teams that can help them make games. Phil Spencer did also kind of tease that they might use some of Bethesda's engines for other Xbox Game Studios titles. So they talked a lot about id Tech, which they use for Doom, and then also the Wolfenstein games, and how that engine's like one of the best out there, to be honest. So he was saying that potentially that could be used in other titles from other studios, which would be pretty cool. But overall, it's great to see that it's going well so far. Just excited to see more from it, really.
Mm-hmm. Justin?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me was just like like figuring out whether these games would specifically be coming only to like Xbox and PC now. Um, yeah, like for me at least, like the Bethesda games haven't always been the games that I've always been that interested in. But nonetheless, I was definitely at least intrigued by Starfield and the next Elder Scrolls. Um, yeah, now that like did they specifically say like Starfield's coming out only to or like they
No,
didn't like
Starfield has
No.
not been like really reported on at all. It's
right,
just
okay.
yeah.
So like I mean yeah, once again it's still like quite up in the air right now. Um but yeah, I don't know, like for me like the reason why I've never really like I don't think it impacts me too much at least just cuz like I have a PC as well, right? Like so like if it does only come out on Xbox and PC, I could always play it on my PC. Like I'm not going to buy an Xbox obviously just for these few games. Um but yeah, like nonetheless, I'm definitely like interested in it. Um, but it's still gonna be like, a ways off. It's not gonna like we're not gonna see Starfield for quite a while. Same thing with obviously Elder Scrolls. That's even further away. But yeah, nonetheless, I assume like the other like all the other IPs, the Bethesda IPs that those are gonna become exclusive, I guess, right? So. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is what it is. It doesn't impact me probably as much as you guys, I guess.
Main thing for me is just Bethesda hasn't exactly been in the best spot in gaming in terms of sales as well. Like a lot of the last few games have been flops, so it's nice that they have the backing by Microsoft now, so their future projects aren't going to be something that's questionable because of obviously funding reasons or scope reasons. So that's very nice to see. And as Charlie said, I like briefly watched a bit of the roundtable while I was in class a bit, and a lot of them were really happy. And yeah, it just comes across as like a genuine kind of deal with them. Like they've been working with Xbox since the very beginning, so really cool to see. And yeah, alongside this, they did announce that 20 Bethesda games will be coming to Game Pass by I want to say by the end of the week. Yeah, tomorrow actually. I'm not going to go through all the listings of the games. You can find that out online. They're like on their Twitter and all that. I think I saw like Evil Within and Fallout 76. A lot of, diverse Bethesda games. So really cool to see. Game Pass is going to be something that, we've talked about on the podcast before. It's like, especially with game prices going up, it's going to be an even better deal this generation. Can't imagine having like all Bethesda games and Xbox games day one on PC just for like what, $10 a month. Not a bad deal. So definitely really cool to see it there. And yeah, that's been about it in terms of the acquisition kind of talks and clarification, but not it for Bethesda news. So yeah, Doom Eternal. Essentially, it's part 2 of its DLC was leaked. Charlie knows more about this than anything, so I'll let you probably talk about this a bit.
Yeah, so there've been a lot of like talks about this DLC recently, mainly because the game director over at id, he has been like playing through Doom Eternal like each level a week for the past couple of months now, and they've been talking a lot about the new DLC, and we knew it was meant to be coming out this month. And Bethesda accidentally leaked a load of information about it over on, I believe it was on their store page. So they leaked like a load of key art and information about like the different levels of the game and the new weapon they're adding and that kind of thing. This prompted Bethesda to end up announcing when the teaser trailer is coming out, which is next Monday. So presumably we'll get a date during this teaser. I would imagine it's probably going to be on the 23rd or something, because that is the 20th, around about then, because that is when Doom Eternal came out last year, and they'll want to probably release it around that year anniversary. But overall, it looks really cool. I really like Doom Eternal, so I'm excited to play more. It does seem like for now, this is kind of the end of the story. They're saying this is going to wrap up a lot of the storylines from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal in this last DLC, so I don't know what that means for another Doom game. It sounds like if there is another one, it'll probably set up a new storyline, potentially with a new Doomslayer. There's been a lot of talks recently about having like a female Doomslayer. I know the main guy, id, he's been saying he's had a lot of ideas for that and things. So
Rage 3.
but yeah, no, not Rage 3. Let's not talk about that series. But yeah, so it looks really cool. I'm excited to see the teaser, and hopefully it's out in the next few weeks. So yeah.
Very cool. Our last kind of Bethesda news story actually comes from Deathloop. Not really much to say about this, honestly, because news hasn't really come out about this, but essentially Gameinformer's cover game for the month is going to be on Deathloop. So I think as of this recording, this morning they uploaded kind of like the 80 quickfire questions. So definitely go check that out. Those videos are always fun to watch. And yeah, just some really cool, information I'm sure will come out in the next few days to weeks ahead as the game comes out. Less than 2 months now? It's kind of crazy. So, or around 2 months away. So, very, very cool stuff there. And other news, Square Enix, actually, this was another news story that came out today as well. Square Enix announced kind of like a direct kind of event that's going to be lasting around 40 minutes long. It's scheduled for next Thursday, actually, so just 1 week as we're recording this. All we know pretty much essentially is going to be mainly the big premiere of the new Life is Strange game. This has kind of been rumored for quite a bit of time that it's going to be kind of like going back to its roots that the first series was on, because obviously it took quite a big turn with 2 being kind of like a on-the-road adventure with 2 brothers, so it's going to be more kind of focused on the original format. Besides that, I think what they mentioned, like a Tomb Raider 25th anniversary announcement, some Avengers updates as well. But the main thing is keep your expectations. Like the big announcement there will be the new Life is Strange game. If they do something else, that will be a surprise to me, but that's going to be like the main thing to look for in that showcase. So yeah, you guys excited for this event next week?
I'm interested in watching it. I personally haven't played the second Life is Strange or Before the Storm. I've only played the first one, and it was, I want to say, like, what, it was 2015. It's like
It was. I think I
6 years
played
ago
that back
now.
when I was in middle school. Like it's a while
Yeah,
ago.
it was a long time ago that game came out. I thought it was okay. I was never like a massive fan of it. But yeah, I never got around to playing the second one, so I'm interested to see what it is. As for all the other stuff there, like Outriders seems okay. It'll be nice to see some Avengers updates, but honestly, I feel like it's just going to be another trailer for the DLC, which will be coming out that week. In fact, I think it's the same day. Um, Hopefully, it's like new content they're going to announce there, but I highly doubt it. I think they've said they're showing off that. Is it Balan's Wonderland or something? I
Oh
think they've
yeah,
said they're
like
showing
the
that off
platformer.
there. So there'll probably be some new details on that because that comes out in a few weeks. But yeah, other than that, like it'll be what it is. Like I'll watch it, but there's nothing there that's crazy exciting me or anything.
Yeah, Justin.
Yeah, pretty much same as Charlie. Not anything particularly too special for me. Like I probably won't even watch it live. I'll just check out the news updates after. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like if it, Avengers updates, I couldn't really care less. Life is Strange. I played like half of the first one, didn't finish it, and then didn't play the second one. So, I mean, like I don't know. If they show it, I'll check it out. But obviously, I'm not counting down the days or anything like that.
Yeah, for me, as like Square Enix, like I like Final Fantasy the most out of all their series, so it's most likely not going to be here as they did kind of that announcement at the State of Play. So I'm keeping my expectations kind of low. Like Charlie, I'd never finished. I played like the first episode of Life is Strange 2. Just those kind of games, it's very hard to play nowadays just because, I don't know, for me, gameplay is king. So I'll just kind of lose interest when I'm just walking around and having dialogue. Like I enjoy the stories, but it's very hard to sit and down and choose to play that over something else that has enticing gameplay loops and all that. So it'll be still interesting. I still plan to finish Life is Strange 2 eventually because that story's pretty cool. But yeah, pretty cool. Hopefully this event will be nice and we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about next week when we go over it. In other news, the Denuvo Anticheat is coming for PS5. This is essentially like an anti-cheat tool that devs can choose to use. It's coming to PS5. Yeah, so take that with what you will. I mean, I don't know. Have you guys come in across like a lot of cheaters on console? I always feel like that's an issue on PC, so found this a bit of a strange one, but nonetheless, I mean, that's nice to have, right? So this was the one, Charlie, this is the one that Bethesda used, right? Because I remember Denuvo was like the
Yeah, so this is the
controversy.
one that everyone on PC hates, mainly because of its
Yeah,
methods. It's one of these that rather than booting up when the game boots up, it boots up when your PC is booting. So
that's
basically,
bullshit.
it's like a kernel level thing that worms its way into Windows. So it caused a lot of problems. There's a lot of security issues because Denuvo is like they've got a big stakes with China.
Oh boy.
And so there was a lot of like people saying that they're selling off information to like Chinese government and things like that. There was also some things where like Doom Eternal used it at launch. Eventually, they did get rid of it, luckily. But yeah, there's been some people that say it affects like performance and stuff. So whether that will be a thing that goes across to PS5, because from what we can tell, this is literally just anti-cheat. It's not going to be the full software that it installs on PCs and stuff, because I imagine that wouldn't be possible when you're putting it on a system that isn't like Windows or something. But yeah, I don't really know why this is a thing. Like, games usually just use their own built-in anti-cheat for consoles, because obviously it's not as prevalent. It's a bit harder to get cheats working on console. As well, Denuvo's now super easy to bypass. Like, it only took people a few months and they already know how to. So no matter what anti-cheat you put on a console, people will find their way around it. It's just how these things are. But yeah, it's interesting nonetheless, but hopefully nothing crazy comes of it.
Yeah. Another news story is Little Nightmares 2, a game that me and Charlie played just, a month ago or so. They announced today that it sold 1 million copies, so congrats to the team over there. Very nice to see. I think we talked about how Little Nightmares as a series sold like 2 million copies, so that brings it up to like, 3 million now, so pretty impressive over there. Sad that we'll most likely not get a third game, but interested in seeing what the team does next. One game that was announced this week was actually kind of a surprise. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is kind of coming back in a way with Shredder's Revenge. This was announced for PC and console. Charlie, I know you have like a decent history with this series on at least the game side, so if you want to talk a bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just a typical kind of like side-scrolling beat 'em up in the style like Streets of Rage and the original TMNT Turtles in Time game for the Super Nintendo, I think it was, and then also the remake on PS3. And yeah, it's going with the older Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff from like the 90s, which is personally what I grew up with, so it's really cool to see them use those versions of the characters and villains and that kind of thing. Especially when I know a lot of the games and stuff they've done in recent years have been tied to like the newer animated shows, which I've never really watched, so and I know they're not meant to be great games or anything like that. But yeah, this just looks like a really fun looking beat 'em up game coming out sometime this year. Hopefully it'll be fun. But yeah, they haven't really said too much about it just yet, but hopefully we'll hear more soon.
For sure. While you're at it, you can also announce the last news story since it's
such a big news story. So yeah, the card game from Valve called Artifact is getting completely cancelled, ceasing development. I say recently, about this same time last year, they launched the 2.0 beta for the game, which was basically redoing a lot of the systems and making it so it would eventually be like a free-to-play game, and wouldn't have as many pay-to-win cards and that kind of thing. But Valve have decided to stop development on the game. It seems like they're trying to rejig a lot of the staff to work on other projects, and there wasn't much work being done on Artifact. So they're now making it completely free-to-play, so you can still play Artifact, it's just they're not updating the game anymore. So you can play Classic, which is the 1.0 version, or you can play Foundry, which is the 2.0 version, with some new cards and stuff. It's not completely finished. They've said that it has all the cards that they'd finished artwork and stuff for, but cards that were in the beta that didn't have like finished artwork or lore and that kind of thing, they're not in the game. But either version is playable, both offline and online. So they're available to download on Steam, but it looks like we're not going to see any more from Artifact.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if Artifact had like a big player base, it was like definitely like it was a niche one, right? I feel like
a
lot of people don't really care about this game from Valve. Whenever I think of Artifact, I think of that announcement, crowd reaction.
Yeah.
When they saw the card game. But yeah, it's kind of not surprising. I don't know, Valve, if anyone knows Valve, somewhat, they know that Valve likes to drop a lot of projects and pick up certain things and mess around with it and then drop it again. We'll never even know about certain things that are in development unless, we get reporters that actually have heard about things going on inside. So, yeah, it's just kind of is what it is in that way, I guess. And we'll find out what they're working on next. It's rumored to be what Citadel, the VR multiplayer asynchronous. So hopefully we'll hear about that this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's an announcement for like 2022, knowing Valve time, right? So yeah, it is what it is. Another, our main topic of the show this week is going to be on factions related. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people are tired about hearing about factions, but we haven't really talked about what we want with factions yet, which we were kind of thinking about. So since this announcement, we imagine, is within a few months now, because the game's going to be hitting its 1-year anniversary by June, right? We figured we'd talk about kind of like our wish list. All of us have essentially been in the Naughty Dog community for quite a bit of time. A lot of us don't like Uncharted 4, and we like the classic kind of multiplayer edition. So, going into factions, it's not a bad idea to kind of give our wish list and hopes, just in case someone happens to, a Naughty Dog employee, if you're watching this, just take some notes. But yeah, so we all wrote down 3 essential, kind of things that we want to see in Factions 2.0 or Factions 2, whatever you want to call it. So I guess we'll start with Justin, if you want to start off with it.
Sure. Okay. So the first thing I put down is kind of like a combined wish, which is basically various game modes, longevity, and communication. So what this means, or like what I'm trying to say, is basically I want a multiplayer that obviously is gonna last quite a while. The Naughty Dog multiplayers have never really been regarded as multiplayers that you play for a long time, especially like at least for the like the casual audience. Obviously, like Factions did have its kind of like core audience, or like people that played it, and like some people that still play it to this day. But yeah, for the general audience, like the Naughty Dog games in particular have never really, been regarded for multiplayer focus. Like people will play the single player, they'll try out the multiplayer for like a week or 2, and then they won't play it again. So I just want, obviously, like, if this is like a standalone, like kind of like multiplayer type thing, I assume they're obviously putting a lot more work into it. It has been in development for a decent amount of time now. So I think it's obviously going to be more than just, regular Factions mode with like 2 game modes. I'm expecting that they're going to have quite a few game modes that are very different from each other. Like one of my biggest problems with Uncharted 4 multiplayer was they only had like 3 game modes at the beginning, and they're essentially all the same. Like they're all very like team-based game modes that revolved around the same thing really. And so I just want like, game modes that are quite different with different objectives. And yeah, like longevity, I just mean like, consistently updating the game, focusing on implementing new game modes and stuff like that, just to keep the player base active. And then the last thing for communication, I basically mean like for, especially for Uncharted 4, I remember there were so many times where people would be trying to communicate with like Naughty Dog employees, basically like giving feedback and stuff like that, trying to ask for certain things that they want in the game, and like they would just not listen for the longest time. Like when people asked for a classic mode for Uncharted 4, it took them so long to add it. When they asked for a leveling system, they're like, okay, we'll add a leveling system, but you can't, like, no one else can see your level. Like what is the point of that, So I just want like, good communication between obviously the fans and Naughty Dog. Just I hope they can listen to us, I guess.
Yeah.
Like obviously I respect that, like it's their creative freedom, but at least, I don't know, like better communication with us to ensure like, I guess both sides are satisfied.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then when you mean like various game modes, I'm guessing you mean kind of like what Uncharted 3 did, right? Where you had like so many different things going on.
Yeah. And like, I don't even know, like, I was like thinking about the idea of like co-op mode too, like, kind of like how Uncharted 4 had co-op. Obviously Factions didn't have co-op like that, but I just thought it'd be kind of interesting if they
Factions didn't have co-op in general.
A way of... yeah. So I don't know, they just like implemented that
for sure. How about you, Charlie? What's your first one?
So my first one's pretty basic. It's one that I've mentioned I think could happen, and it's one I really do want to happen, which is it being free to play and being on console and PC. I feel like it being free to play on console is like pretty likely at this point, especially because it is coming out so late after part 2. I feel like they'll want to get as many players in, and making it a standalone paid multiplayer in 2021 just isn't the right way of doing things, in my opinion. But having it on PC, I think, would really help. You could bring in a lot more of the streaming community, which I think would be really good for the multiplayer if they want it to live on in the long run, if they can bring in a lot of those players. I personally know quite a few people who have played Factions back on like PS4 when it first came out, and a lot of them are on PC now, and like they haven't played Part 2 or anything. And they've said to me, like, because I mentioned Factions 2 to them and stuff, and they've said that, you know, if it came to PC, they'd be super hyped for it, because, you know, they want that kind of multiplayer on PC, because there isn't really anything like Factions out there. So having it on PC as well, I think, would be great, and having cross-play as well, being able to play across both PS4, PS5, and PC, really boost those player numbers so that it can stay alive for a lot longer than it would normally, even though Factions is still, like, got quite a few players. You can easily find matches even now. But yeah, that's kind of my first wish, really.
Yeah, it's a good point about the streaming. People all being on Twitch and PC, right? So that would make a really good choice there. Yeah, especially since that kind of game really isn't on PC. I think Rogue Company is kind of the closest thing you have. But even that has a lot of differences. But yeah. Anyways, my first kind of point here is I just want like a robust co-op experience with like campaigns and I don't know, kind of like what Uncharted 3 had and Uncharted 2 had. Just, you know, Last of Us is screaming for co-op. The whole series has different kinds of infected that are very iconic based on the, you know, now what, 3 campaigns we've had with Left Behind, Part 1 and Part 2. There's just so many cool things they could do with that. Just throw in, you know, you and a buddy or you and three friends, and that would be a really fun time. Yeah, like even just with co-op alone, like not even having like PvPvE, just like PvE would be super fun to have. So that's kind of like my first one. I feel like this is the one that everyone was talking about when Last of Us first came out. It's like, oh, I really wish this had like a co-op mode. I wish they added in DLC. They never did. We saw with with Left Behind actually, they added in, you know, infected versus AI later on in that campaign. So I definitely feel like it's gonna happen with Factions 2. So yeah, I'm just really hoping that's kind of like robust in a way where it's like a little bit replayable, just kind of like what Uncharted 3 was for me. So that's kind of like my first point there. And yeah, Justin.
All right. Second one. I just said stay away from the pay to win BS, which is basically like I know it's really hard for like, I don't know, especially if it's like a free to play multiplayer, right? Then you're obviously gonna need to get money back from like in-game purchases and stuff like that. I just hope they can kind of find a way to like implement, I don't know, like I'm talking about like all the DLC stuff after, because I know like with Last of Us Factions, like they just had what was it called, like Tactical Shotgun and stuff like that, like all these like future DLC stuff that people you know, got after the game, where you buy it, and it just like ruined the whole balance of the game, where people were constantly using those weapons. Like it just threw everything off. So I just hope they can, you know, kind of stay away from that, find a good way to balance, like, you know, if you are adding new guns and stuff like that, just make it balanced, I guess, and find a way, or like at least have a way maybe that you can like, earn it in game or something. Yeah, like so you don't essentially have to like only buy it to get it, or like if you do, or like if the gun is so powerful that you're essentially forced to buy it if you want to do well in the game, you know? So.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. That's like, I'll have it like part of my last point, but yeah, I definitely agree. Like that segments a lot of the player base off, and even Uncharted 4 kind of had that. Like, I don't know, you could earn it, right? But it was like a random loot box full of like a bunch of weapons you could choose to have. Like, I still don't have the M4 in Uncharted 4 just because I don't play that multiplayer much, and I never got to unlock it because I wasn't lucky. So yeah, that's a big one.
If they want to do DLC weapons, the best way to do it would be something like how COD does it more recently, which is they'll have them in the battle pass,
like a free tier.
They're the free tiers, so you can either get them through the pass, or once that season's over, there's a challenge that unlocks that you have to do, so that it's there, and that's how you add them in, but also kind of get people to spend money without it being you're paying for that weapon specifically. So.
Hey man, Last of Us Part 2 didn't sell well according to the haters. They gotta monetize somehow. Charlie?
So mine is kind of your first one, Brandon, which is co-op missions. Um, but for me, I kind of want them to take a different spin rather than just having a traditional kind of co-op thing like Uncharted co-op or like Left 4 Dead or something like that. I kind of would like to see them do something like a raid from your traditional MMO, whether that's Destiny or World of Warcraft, where you're working together and doing objectives, whether that's working through like a town environment and clearing out areas, or doing more puzzle type things, where you're having to, move stuff over a bridge or something. You've got to move some cars out of the way and that kind of thing. I'd like to see them go for like longer scale co-op missions rather than smaller type things, where you could be going off and scavenging stuff and getting materials for your camp and that kind of thing. Um, like that was one of the things I feel like was missing from factions was some kind of co-op mode, since they had that in Uncharted, and even Uncharted 4 they ended up doing like the co-op stuff. So but yeah, that would be the direction I'd like to see them take with co-op, rather than more like a linear type thing, making it more kind of like puzzle based and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Every single Naughty Dog multiplayer has had co-op. Uncharted 4 obviously got it later, but every single multiplayer besides factions has had co-op. Yeah, that's a good point. My second point actually is just kind of like revolves around what factions is, right? Essentially with factions, you always, during the matches, you'd always go for these cans and try, that's like, you collecting supplies essentially. And you come back and you see all these like blue and gray dots essentially. I think that if they want to continue that aspect of factions, because ultimately that's what it is, right? You collecting supplies for your camp. It would be nice to see the camp. So it'd be nice like if instead of like a main menu, maybe we had like a playable kind of hub world where it's like you see certain players, NPCs obviously just kind of like living in your camp, and if like you're losing match after match, like a lot of them are just dead. That'd be fun. So I don't know, just like have some kind of visual representation instead of just like these dots on like on a radar grid, right? That are just supposed to mean something to you. So if they're gonna continue with that aspect, I definitely want it to feel more focused on it. I'm not sure if they'll do that. If they don't, I don't want to see those blue dots again, just because it's kind of pointless and annoying. But it'd be cool if it was like tied to what you saw around, like if your gunsmith guy, where you can unlock new guns in your community, was just like coughing and shit because like he's sick or some shit. I don't know. Get creative. That's my second one. Justin?
Cool. All right. So for my last one, I just put implementing the Last of Us aspects into the game, and like I just with this I kind of mean, the whole world of The Last of Us. There's obviously the survivors, but there's also the infected. So I don't know how they could do this, but I would like them to kind of try implementing the infected into some of the, like the different game modes. I don't know how they would specifically do that. Maybe
like random events.
I don't know if or
like
yeah, like I don't know. There could just be like at certain points, like
could be like the tank.
3, like yeah, like kind of like that, or like I was thinking of in Uncharted 3, there was like the sandstorm that would happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if like some infected spawn or something like that. I don't even know. Like I just thought it'd be kind of a cool idea. If that would be part of it, just basically show off more of the world of The Last of Us in the multiplayer.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
You kind of see stuff like that in World War Z's multiplayer. They had like events where zombies would swarm in and stuff, and make it more like PvP VE, because you had the AI zombies running around. They could do something like that, which would be pretty cool. Just have a load of clickers just run across the map that you suddenly have to like be super quiet. Stuff like that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely agree. What about your last one?
So for my last one is another kind of mode that I'd like to see, and it's not what we've talked about before, Battle Royale, but it is instead an Escape from Tarkov style mode, where you'd have like a super large map, and you spawn in with like a minimal loadout, and you're going in scavenging, trying to find new gear, whether that's scrap or like food, like you would in normal multiplayer, except it's on a much larger map. You'd have AI enemies as well as like the infected running around that you had to avoid, and then obviously other players that are also trying to scavenge stuff and then extract a certain point on the map. I think it could be really cool, especially with the more of the mechanics they added in part 2, like being able to prone and more intricately designed like buildings and stuff like that, I think it could work really well. It's just whether the engine can support it, because obviously they've done like the larger scale areas in part 2 and Uncharted 4, but not in multiplayer, so I don't know whether that's something they could do. If they can, I think that kind of mode would fit perfectly with the post-apocalyptic setting, and there's not a ton of multiplayer games that have taken stuff from Tarkov yet. The only thing I can think of is they've got like an extraction mode in Warzone now, which is kind of similar, but something like that I think would be really cool, because I do like Tarkov. I just don't like the like hardcore nature of it, so having a mode like that in Factions would be really cool.
So would it be like in Tarkov where like you could choose what you bring out, or would everyone spawn in with like nothing?
I would picture it more as like the Division like survival DLC, if you played that, where you spawn in with like a pistol and like some basic meds, and then you find other weapons in the map and things.
That'd be cool. I definitely could see that. Just depends if they're working on it. Yeah, that'd be really cool. It fits Factions perfectly, kind of the idea of like scavenging and going out for items and all that. So yeah. My last point was kind of Justin's first one. Essentially, it's just like none of the BS that we had in Uncharted 4. So like this incorporates a lot of stuff. Like, I'm sure they're doing a leveling system. God, I hope so. But like, don't have weird choices like that where it's like there was no map voting. That was a really weird one for me. And like I remember asking, I forgot which dev it was, but like they were said like, oh, like matchmaking as it is takes a while. We want you to go straight into a game. But I'm like, I'd rather take 10 seconds to pick a map we all want to go on for the next 10 minutes than for us to get into a match 10 seconds quicker for, you know, a map we all don't really care about. So that'd be nice. Just a lot of the weird decisions that they had. Obviously, like things like the gameplay bags that you would, you know, unlock with relics. That would be like a random weapon. I didn't like that shit. So many different color options for cosmetics that I felt were really filler with Uncharted 4 as well. Just a bunch of weird decisions in that multiplayer that ultimately is why I'm not playing it at all for the last few years. So yeah, if you could do that. I guess since it is the last one, I'll just give some honorable mentions of some cool things I'd like to see. Factions, you always put as random characters, and I get that because it's like, obviously it's supposed to be like you going after your camp, but I wouldn't mind if you could play as like iconic characters in the franchise just because it is multiplayer. Uncharted has that because obviously it's just multiplayer, right? You're not supposed to take it too seriously. So it'd be cool if you could play as like Joel or Tommy or even Abby and Ellie. That'd be cool. But yeah, that's essentially kind of what I put down. So any kind of like last things you guys wanted to mention that weren't a part of your big three before we end off the episode?
Not for me. I feel like
pretty much it.
Yeah, I covered what I was thinking.
Yep. Anyways, yeah, that was kind of our thoughts on Factions and what we want to see. Make sure to leave yours in the comment section down below. Yeah, obviously we hope this thing is announced soon. Who knows? Like, this is a big question mark. We'll get, you know, monthly updates from Neil on Twitter, I'm sure. Of it's coming. But yeah, with that being,
we get like monthly updates from their job listings.
That's very true. I mean, kind of why we talked about it was recently that job listing for economy designer. That's supposed to like, you know.
Yeah, I spotted that. Like long before all these news reporters were like talking about it. I was talking about that like weeks ago.
Yeah, it was like in the beginning of February or something like that. Yeah,
and they're like waiting for me to finish the trailer. You know?
Oh yeah, Justin still out in the trailer, so he actually put a bunch of stuff down that he knows about in the trailer.
Yeah.
So yeah. How far along are you with that trailer, Justin?
I think I should finish it for you know, like E3.
E3, okay.
Whoa, NDAs, Justin, come on.
Yeah, come on, Justin. No one watches this podcast.
God damn.
But yeah, I guess that has been it for this week's episode of Critically Incorrect. Yeah, not a big news story this week, so we decided to kind of incorporate our own topic and talk about Factions for a bit since it kind of fits. And I'm sure we'll see this game hopefully announced at least within the next few months. And yeah, with that being said, we'll see you next week for episode 18. And yeah, until then, take care, everyone. Peace.
See you later.